nurses who have taken to the picket lines for a second consecutive day in their dispute over pay, joining ambulance workers in Wales in going ahead with industrial action. And during their walkouts today, NHS nurses have hit back at Conservative MP Simon Clarke after he made comments saying that healthcare workers needed to learn how to budget if they are relying on food banks. Now, currently, there doesn't seem to be a resolution on the cards after the Health Secretary refused to compromise on a 10% pay rise. And I suppose if you speak like that, you're not unlikely to get people to compromise as well. More strikes are scheduled for the beginning of February. So joining me now is the former ITU nurse, Rebecca Butler. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me. Rebecca, if you were still a nurse, would you be standing on the picket line with your colleagues?
Categorically not, no.
Why?
Because I think it's wrong. I think it's a caring profession. It's a vocation. The kickback from not having the high wages is that you have excellent working conditions. You're trained. You have your continuing training paid for. You have generous holidays and you have an excellent pension at the end of it. That is the deal that public sector workers sign up to, and it's something that private sector workers don't benefit from. So there is a balance to be had. It is a caring profession. They should not be on strike.
What are your views on Simon Clarke's comments? Because he's basically saying they should have enough money. It doesn't make any sense if they're going to food banks.
Yeah, I think this is just hyperbole, frankly, Nana. Another thing is that the media is making a big deal about nurses on strike today. Only 10,000 nurses are on strike. It's a big number, but there are 750,000 nurses on the register. So it's 1.2% of nurses are on strike, but 5.8% of them are off sick as well. So there's a bigger problem with nurses being off sick than actually nurses being on strike. And I think the NHS as an employer could actually get its head around that. In terms of food banks, I do not believe for a minute that nurses are going to food banks. I just don't believe it. I'm sorry. It's hyperbole, and nobody believes it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, listening to some of the things that I've heard, that some of them are going to food banks. I mean, I did hear on one show that a nurse who was on £30-something thousand, she was saying that her mortgage was £1,200, although she was married, so her partner also. I don't know. It feels unfair to look straight at the actual salary, because you've got to look at what the outgoings are as well. But do you feel that perhaps nurses do deserve a bit more money, and in particular when the NHS appears to be able to afford to pay agency staff quite a lot more than their own employees?
Well, quite often the agency staff are the full-time staff in the first place. They're not magic nurses coming from somewhere else. They're agency nurses doing extra shifts on their own ward. So it's not an extra group of nurses that are getting the money. Yes, there is a problem with agency work, but that, again, is a workforce management problem. It doesn't justify a strike by any means. And if on £30,000 you can't afford your mortgage, maybe you got too much of a mortgage when you applied for one, and that is a whole different argument about people being addicted to low interest rates. Now you're in trouble if you're at the end of on your fixed rate and you're going on to a standard variable. Yeah, you may be in trouble, but if on £30,000 a year and you're married, you're going to a food bank, then there ought to be a lot more people in food banks, because a lot of people don't earn £30,000, which is well above the average wage in this country. So that's why I don't believe the food bank statistics, Nana. I really just don't believe them.
Well, Rebecca, it's very good to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining me. That is Rebecca Butler. She's a former ITU nurse.